Welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter, and we're back to recap the latest down in Destin from the SEC spring meetings. Day 2, a little bit of a slower day here, but we got some fireworks thanks to old Jimbo Fisher. That was arguably the most anticipated media availability of this entire event. What would Jimbo say after he went all fire and brimstone there on Nick Saban? A little update here from Cousin Shane. Got off the line with him. The move is done. Getting internet installed. Maybe an opportunity for Cousin Shane to hop on the line and hopefully, maybe, fingers crossed, I'm sure there's going to be a camera excuse or something, but maybe we'll have video of Cousin Shane on the next episode, and hopefully we'll have him on tomorrow's show. Still trying to line up some guests down there for people down in Destin on location, but you know, all the reporters down there very, very busy, so it's tough to fit in anyone's schedule at this point in time. We're still working hard to get some recaps into what's going on down there in Destin. But let's start the show here with comments from Greg Sankey, who spoke. He spoke in both days down here at the SEC spring meetings, and you know, was asked about scheduling, how soon a resolution could come there on, again, eliminating divisions. That certainly seems to be the way the SEC, the way the rest of college football is trending. And then this last comment comes from Sankey. Had an appearance on Wednesday on the Paul Feinbaum show on making a decision this week. Could it happen as soon as this week of the 8-game or 9-game SEC schedule? Things of that nature. It'll, of course, have to be voted on. But let's kick it over to the commissioner, Greg Sankey.
Probably. Yeah, we focus more on the single division model. But until we're done, you never know.
Has there been pushback just on that idea, no divisions, or do you think that's kind of the way college football is moving forward, not just with the SEC, but also elsewhere in the power conferences?
Well, I'll let others comment on their own decision making. We have pushed back. We've had discussion, debate through a set of models, and until we're done, we're going to have discussion and debate about models. As we think about what are we trying to achieve, I talked about blue sky thinking, so let's open up how we schedule. Let's think about options. Let's move teams through campus more frequently. So those were my 2 starting points. Issues of fairness and balance, which were not defined. So when we started this process, fairness and balance were introduced in like every interview. So understand these have been individual interviews, some survey feedback, some group discussion, some more individual interviews. What are the priorities? Fairness and balance. Well, what does that mean? So then you have to define, fairness and balance. So balance was defined as moving teams through with greater frequency, and fairness becomes a bit of analytics about the equity from a competitive standpoint. This week.
With Commissioner Sankey, the other media story before this one mushroomed was about the future of this league, what it's going to look like. You've been quoted as saying there are endless numbers of models. Where is that right now in terms of what's ahead sooner?
The quick history, we started in August. We focused on, to the extent we'd be prepared to make decisions here, to be prepared to make decisions, but we don't have to make decisions here. And so I think we're poised to, some questions have come up about information, so we'll probably need to gather a little bit more information. I think if you list 21 sports, there's a whole bunch that we're ready to go. A few, and football's going to lead, where still debate on what we should look like. We have a bit of uncertainty around the college football playoff. Would be the current format in 25. We've had really strong success at 8, and then 26 we'll have something. I don't know what that will be. So that's one of those dynamics that we have to take a step back and consider.
Again, so based on those comments, Sankey, he never likes to reveal much when he has got a mic in front of his face here, and staying true to form here, keeping things pretty close to the vest. But the fact that a decision could come. Now, again, the SEC is under no timeline to necessarily get that done. We still don't know when Texas and Oklahoma will be joining the league. Everybody keeps saying July 2025. That is officially when Texas and Oklahoma can get out of their Big 12 contracts. I still think it'll be before then, but contractually they have to say that 2025 because otherwise they could get slapped by the Big 12 for essentially making deals and plans with two members that are, again, under contract with the Big 12. But interestingly, Greg Sankey has admitted here that Texas and Oklahoma, while they don't have representatives at this SEC spring meetings, they are keeping them in the loop, not only in football, but in all sports scheduling, the future of the SEC scheduling. So, I don't know. I guess you would reach out even if it is 2025, but that, again, indicates to me that they are keeping those programs, those schools in the loop, just in case it comes a little bit sooner, like we all hope it will. And that is the vibe. We're getting from Destin, 9-game SEC schedule, likely going to beat out the 8-game model, which is what we've been promoting here all off season with a 9-game schedule. You'd have 3 permanent rivals you'd play annually. You'd mix up the other 6 every other season. I love that model. Now, the tricky part's going to be who's in your 3 permanents. That is going to be a sticking point for probably all 14 SEC teams. And something Scott Strickland, the AD, mentioned, a lot of fatigue from fans with the current model. He expects the new model will allow for all teams to travel to every other SEC stadium every 4 years. So again, that is just more smoke to the 9-game model with the 3 permanents, 6 rotating. That's exactly what Scott Strickland is referencing there with being able to visit all 16 SEC stadiums in a 4-year span like players deserve to do. And just to be clear, because, you see some reports out there, coaches have not voted on any of this stuff. The coaches don't have the final say. The final say goes to the school presidents. And they, along with in part the ADs, but still the school presidents are the ones that get to make these decisions. Presidents are the ones that get to vote on expansion and all that. They are set to meet on Thursday, and they may put a vote on the table for going to the 9-game SEC schedule. I do not know if that is going to happen or not, but we'll keep you guys in the loop as soon as anything's announced there. And if there is a vote, it's just the way it goes in the SEC. You're all in or there's no vote. So they're not going to hold this thing until they're confident that they can get everybody on board with going to a 9-game SEC conference slate, which is, hopefully what they do. Now, we're going to get to Jimbo's comments here in just a minute because he had so many good ones here on Wednesday, but I just thought this was hilarious. Scott Woodward, of course, the LSU AD, he's good buddies with Jimbo there, tried to hire Jimbo this offseason. We all know the stories there, and he was the one that managed to lure Jimbo away from Florida State to Texas A&M, of course. Asked about the fussing and the feuding between Jimbo and Nick Saban on the Paul Feinbaum show. Scott Woodward with the perfect analogy here.
I'm sure you've had a good front row seat to all of the theatrics lately.
Yeah, Paul, like we were discussing, I'm not going to get in between 2 hillbillies fighting from West Virginia. That's a no-win situation.
I'm not sure I'm going to recover from that.
That reminds me of Cousin Shane and the Flying Hawaiian going back and forth. 2 hillbillies fighting on the floor. That's something that my family knows good and well, and I bet a lot of you out there know exactly what old Scott Woodward's talking about when he says 2 hillbillies fighting. But perfect segue to get here to Jimbo Fisher's comments. Again, spoke here on Wednesday, much anticipated, and you had to have seen it coming, of course. That was the big topic coming into this event. Nick Saban versus Jimbo Fisher right out the gate. Asked about Nick Saban. He was asked about Nick Saban basically this whole damn presser. But let's kick it over to Jimbo, his comments on Nick Saban and how cordial the meetings have been with the SEC coaches behind closed doors.
What was your interaction with Nick like, if any?
We had any, just like we would on normal conversations within the issues that we had. We all had a lot of dialogue. Probably since I've been here, but I've also been in the ACC meetings for all those years when I was a head coach. One of the best dialogues as far as a group of coaches with everyone speaking and having opinions that I've been around, one of the best ones we had, because everybody knows the pressing issues. But we had dialogue. If he had an opinion, we had an opinion. I mean, we all discussed things very professionally in the right way.
Did you clear the air, though, with him? Did you speak to him directly about what you accused him of?
We spoke very in the beginning, and he's been what he accused us of. Both things. We said it's over with. We're done talking about it and what happens, and we're moving on to the future, what goes on, and try to fix the problems of what we have in college football. We're a lot more pressing needs than our arguments.
So you said that directly. We're done. This is over. We're moving on.
Yeah, we're moving on to do what we got. I have no problem.
What was your relationship like with Coach Saban and LSU? Kirby made a reference to it. People have said
no. We were good. I mean, I was on offense. He was on that. We had a great relationship. We had a lot of success. Did well, and wasn't not many issues at all. I mean, normal staff issues. If this or tomorrow, I mean, what you're doing here, but I mean, nothing. We had a great relationship.
But it's part of having a great relationship. Even then, there's disagreements.
Oh, yeah. Let me ask you:
football and things like that.
You ever argue with your brother?
Oh, sure.
Do you love your brother? Yeah. Did you support your brother? That's the way coaches are. You can't get to where you're trying to go on a staff if you don't have this. If everybody's yes people and everybody says the same thing, you don't ever get nowhere. You can't get better. I mean, that's part of our nature and our competitive nature.
So, Jimbo, just to put a bow on it.
Hey, I tired of it. I'm done, all right? I'm done. You want me to double knot it? You want me to double knot it?
We're here now. You don't regret going back and saying, man.
I'm not talking about we're moving on. We're moving on.
Coach,
I double knotted. How about that?
So that's pretty interesting. And just a little behind the curtain here, if you were unaware, Jimbo is actually annually they rotate who's the chairman of the coaches. Just so happened to be this year was Jimbo Fisher was the chairman. So when they hold these meetings, I mean, he's in the lead chair, picking on who gets called and who doesn't. So I wonder if Nick Saban, if he iced him out as the chairman, I think he would have lost his role as chairman if that were the case. But I kid. But it's interesting that it all lined up the way it did. So Jimbo also had his comments there on the 8 or 9 game conference schedule. Certainly seems like some of these coaches are a little bit split on which direction to go in. But again, the coaches, they're not the ones that have a say. They'll get to speak to the ADs. They'll get to weigh in with the school presidents. But certainly sounds like not all the coaches are on board with making their jobs and lives tougher going to a potential 9-game SEC schedule. So I thought that was interesting. But one other important nugget here dropped by Jimbo on Wednesday was the fact that if they go to a 9-game SEC slate, it appears that the SEC is going to do away with, there's a current rule, I'm sure all fans know this, but you have to play one Power 5 non-conference opponent annually in the SEC. Sounds like they're going to drop that if they go to the 9-game conference slate, which is going to make things tougher because I don't think we're going to be seeing no chance in hell Florida State, South Carolina, Clemson, Kentucky, Louisville. Those games are going to remain on the schedule. So you're talking teams like South Carolina, Florida, and Kentucky having minimum 10 Power 5 conference opponents. So, maybe Florida's already said they're in favor of it, but that leads me to believe South Carolina and Kentucky, they may be two of the holdout tiers to go to a 9-game conference slate. Of course, South Carolina, you could argue you drop an A&M annually. If the Aggies turn into a power, going to a 9-game slate could favor you there. But just some interesting nuggets. And Jimbo also, this is something a lot of coaches argue for, and you wonder if they're being genuine or not. But playing FCS opponents, G5 opponents, Jimbo Fisher makes a strong case why, even if we do go to 9 games, why we should keep these low-level opponents on the schedule in the SEC.
Was there a consensus in the coaches on 8 or 9 conference schedules?
Do you think coaches can? Yeah. I want good questions now. I'm just, no, there wasn't, because I think you have each team and each program sees itself differently based on where it's at, what it does, or where it can be based off. I think conference games are great, but I think with the new TV contracts, do they up it? Do you get better? You get better for them? I'm all for it. But I am for this. I'm going to say this about scheduling. I don't mind if it's 9 or 8. You know what I'm saying? I think getting great conference, because we also schedule, like, for instance, we have Miami come on for 2 years. We've got Notre Dame after that for 2 years. So we're always, we were still, whether we had 8 or 9, we're still scheduling another big game, which I do. But I do believe this, and I know a lot of peaks don't at our level. I know fans don't, but I'm going to explain why. I do believe we need to play a FCS 1AA game. And people don't believe that. And here I'm going to give you my reason why. I came from that league of ball. Bobby Bowden came from that league of ball. A lot of great coaches. Nick came at Kent State. That wouldn't be considered a Power 5 job. How do those schools make budget, make things for this game the betterment of football? I think you have to trickle the wealth down to those schools so they can make budget, and 1AA can play a Division II. Because if you don't, and those schools have to fold up because they can't get the money for their programs, where do the high school kids get scholarships? How many kids get educated from small college football? And we say they're going to, but they don't get crowds. I mean, what's a big crowd for Division II? 10,000? 1AA, it's still 10 or 12, 15,000. Now, some get more. I'm not saying that. But you have to trickle that finance. I think we have to let that wealth drain all the way through all the football, Division III, Division II, 1AA, the non-Power 5s, whatever. I think you have to do that for the betterment of this game. I know that may not be the greatest game to watch, but there's a lot of upsets in those games too. And there's a lot of opportunities. But for the betterment of football, because if those kids quit playing football in high school because there's other opportunities in other sports, that hurts the big game of football and the whole picture thing. That's the way I look at it. Now, maybe that's because I came from small college football, but I think those things and opportunities and the chances for people are out there, in my opinion.
Our understanding is that if the SEC does go to a 9-game schedule, that they'll eliminate the requirement to have to play a Power 5 non-conference opponent every year.
Yeah, I believe that was true. That was what was presented. I don't know that.
Would you still want to play?
Yeah, we most likely would. Yeah, we would probably keep our game with Notre Dame or Miami or whoever else, because I think where you're going in the college football playoff, that's the other avenue of this thing. Where is this thing going that gets into your conference games? Because at the end of the day, you want great content, but as a program, still you want what gives you the best chance and which allows you to get the most teams into the playoff. And to get the 12 best teams or 8 best teams or 16 best teams, whatever that format is, I think that's the thing of the playoff that I'm for. I mean, what are the 8, 12, 16, what are the best teams and how you get there? And I think hopefully the reward strength of schedule and that process. And I think it's better for college football.
So again, it's one thing to just sit here and say this and say, I need some cupcakes on my schedule to fill up on, but he makes a good point. A lot of these, programs, they need these games to survive. And not only that, but, that's a lot of the coaches start out at these low-level ranks. Where's the pipeline to excellent coaches going to be coming from if we start doing away with a lot of these lower-tier football programs? That's not necessarily the SEC. It's not on them to fuel the rest of the country here, but it is something to consider before any kind of banning of FCS games or G5 games, which I don't think would necessarily be on the table. But that's interesting. In addition to Jimbo's comments there on the SEC doing away with that non-conference Power 5 requirement, one opponent at the Power 5 level. So how does that create any kind of imbalance in schedules of some SEC teams? That will be something interesting to see. And then last little nugget here, maybe the best comment here from Jimbo, in my opinion. Texas coming into the league, of course. We don't know when at this point in time, but when the Longhorns come in, does Jimbo want to face the Longhorns every season?
Would you anticipate with the new scheduling set up in years to come, the University of Texas being your permanent rival? And would you look forward to it? I know you've learned a lot about the rivalry.
No, I would love it. Rivalries are great for college football. I love rivalries. I think the 1-7 format, in my opinion, whatever the dominant rivalry is or whatever the league says it is that the 3 gives you get your second rival, which in this league there's still a lot of those that are included in that thing too. And then the format goes back of 5 and 4 and what you're scheduling. I think there's there's so much unknown because where's the college format going to be? Where's the bowl game schedule going to be in the future? How does this affect playoffs? How many teams are getting in? How many losses can you have? I think there's a lot of consequences there that we don't know the answers to. But, yeah, I would love to play Texas. If that was our guy, I would love to play Texas, without a doubt.
And that's the only answer you had to give right there if you're Jimbo. I mean, you cannot run from Texas, and I know the Aggies sure as hell won't be running from them. There's no reason to run from the Longhorns last time I checked, the last couple of decades. So it would be a travesty, in my opinion, if Texas comes into the league and they do not play A&M annually. So we got to get this resolved, something we've hit on previous episodes. Again, that's why the 8-game model just doesn't work. If they're going one permanent rivalry, 7 rotating, because you'd lose that game. You'd lose a lot of great games. So hopefully they make the right decision, go with the 9-game model and the 3 permanents. Now, 2 other things real quick. It was a relatively quiet day here. The spring meetings, day 2. But I just thought this was hilarious. The first year LSU coach Brian Kelly, of course, longtime Notre Dame coach, always touting up, the Fighting Irish and everything they got going on. But as soon as old Brian Kelly is down here in SEC country, he wants it to be known that the SEC sets the tone for the rest of the country. These comments come courtesy of Sirius XM Radio.
There's some things that, we have to be collaborative with. And when I say collaborative, I mean, we have to come out with a message as a group of coaches. And, and the SEC should do that. I mean, we should be that group that kind of sets the tone, whether it be name, image, and likeness, or it be the transfer portal. And scheduling obviously is important too, because we're bringing in Oklahoma and we're bringing in Texas, and that has implications too. So I think what we decided was that whatever comes out of these meetings, we have to be collaborative, and we got to be uniform in terms of what we say and how we say it. And I think that was really important in what we crafted.
Isn't it funny? These coaches. The SEC overrated, yada, 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 the moment they're in. SEC's the best. I think even Jimbo was guilty of that at a time or two when he was at old FSU. ACC was dominant back then. Not the moment they come into the SEC, they start telling the truth when it comes to where the toughest football is played in college football, and it's no doubt it's the SEC. So I just thought that was hilarious. And then last little nugget here, I had not heard anything about this, so I thought the audience would find this pretty interesting, but Kirby Smart is on the competition committee, the rules committee, and he mentioned that, they are at least considering ways to shorten college football games. And we all love college football, but sometimes, these 4-hour games, I swear every SEC on CBS game, as long as it's competitive, is 4 hours, 4.5 hours minimum. Hell, I even remember a couple of years ago, Tennessee, Texas A&M played, and a couple days later, it was such a great game, overtime game. The SEC network they replay the games, but they shorten them a little bit for time constraints. They had to skip an entire quarter of that Tennessee Texas A&M game because, my God, it was like a 4.5 hour marathon type game. So Kirby Smart sharing some insight into the rules committee, at least looking at ways they can shorten college football games to make them a little bit more just like the NFL when it comes to time constraints.
Interesting. In terms of the way the conference is going to look, I mean, it is. We all have liked what we have, but it is inequitable when you don't really know who you're going to get some years. In terms of adding that game, and I asked this to a coach who's opening against Oregon. You've been to Notre Dame. Everyone knows you Clemson last year. You've never run away from anyone. How do you feel about the debate between adding a game and doing away with divisions?
It's hard because I really want to add the game, but I want to do it more for the fans. I really feel like fans and the consumers that come to our games, they want the best games, right? They want the interconference. They want to see SEC play SEC teams. So I want to give them what they want. I also want the best opportunity for our conference to get more teams in the playoff. Well, is the playoff of the future 4? Or is the playoff of the future 8, 6, 12? I don't know that, but you want the most opportunity. As the playoff number grows, I think there's more and more people comfortable with more SEC games. But that's not the only reason to do it. The reason to do it is because it's the best teams playing the best teams. And for viewership, I know our fan base at Georgia, they want to see us play Texas A&M. We haven't gone to Texas A&M to this date, and it's a 12-year cycle. So they're gonna have the ability to tighten the cycle even more if you play more games.
Yeah, some people refer back to the COVID year, which is a bizarre year, but I heard from you and many it was a brutal stretch.
It was a brutal stretch. It was tough on the players, and I think we've got to be smart because in all these adding games and adding physicality of games and adding playoff teams, you add more games, you may have to do something with the clock. You may have to manage the game tighter to reduce the number of plays. You know, just making a subtle change in clock management could shorten the plays, which would shorten the season and make more games actually not more games.
On that subject, you are a student of the game. What else could be done? Because it's for the fan, and it's not easy for the coach. But I mean, these games just go on forever.
Yeah, I think they tighten that up. I was actually on one of the committees with the rules committee, and that was a conversation. You know, our game average length is not that far off from the NFL's. Okay, we'd love to tighten that, but our extremes are different, meaning our longest games are long and our shortest games are short. So our median, somewhere in the middle there, is not that far off the NFL, but we'd love to be able to tighten that up, and that would allow us to play more games because the players would have less snaps, and you're trying to not increase snaps on the kids.
I mean, not to turn this into into the bar conversation a little bit, what could you change, but what would you, if we let you...
It's been discussed, running clock after an incompletion. Okay, you get an incompletion, you get a running clock there up until the last 2 minutes of the game or last 4 minutes of the game. It would reduce that time some, and it would probably be overall better for the viewership. We got to think about our customers and our fan base out there. But there's so many good rivalries in the SEC. I hope we don't lose those, but there's certainly an opportunity with new teams coming in to get some great games going.
So I don't know about the method to doing this, like Kirby says here, of a running clock after an incompletion. I don't know if I'd quite get on board with that, but it's good to know that they're at least considering it, because you always got to be working to make the game better. It's, in my opinion, of course, is the best game around college football, SEC football. How can we make it better? How can we improve upon the best product? Because if you're not looking ahead, you're not trying to improve like the SEC is trying to do here, you could get passed by, and that's just the way it is. So I just appreciated the fact that Kirby kind of let this one slip and shared some insight into ways they're trying to improve SEC football. But hey, that's all we got on this episode. So again, a little bit of a shorter one here. SEC spring meetings, a little bit duller here with fewer coaching comments and all that. But hopefully we'll have some big news here on Thursday, something to go down. And again, hopefully, fingers crossed, the Tennessee Homer will be back on the show to wrap us up for the weekend here on what would be a Friday show. So stay tuned. We really do appreciate each and every one of you for continuing to check us out. It's freaking June. 1 month closer to college football. We are approaching, I want to say, 93 days to the SEC, first Saturday in the SEC. 91 if you're a Tennessee or Mizzou fan, and hell, in an entire week earlier if you're a Vanderbilt fan. Less than 90 days from some SEC football. It'll be here before you know it. But hey, that's all we got on this episode of the show. We'll catch you on the next one.